So, yeah, welcome everyone once again, officially. So just gonna spend a couple of words on where we are with our Moodle page, what you can find, what's useful to you. So, and where to keep an eye for, as I said before, like further announcements, right? So if you go to our team and mission page, you will get an overview of who we are and what we do. At the moment, like currently it's like 3 members of staff, but mainly me and Jason are available during the week. Then we're, as I said before, in the process of picking our GTAs. So students like you who are very proficient in the use of certain software, certain workflows, and will help us and will help you. And then we also do have this current relationship with the CPU. You probably, some of you were here during the past week and you had the session with Mahmoud. So Mahmoud is running a couple of sessions this year, I believe 3 sessions. So there will be 2 in the first semester. The next one will be next week and it will be Ladybug, so environmental analysis, quite an interesting one. Most likely I'll be also here assisting him like last time, so helping him out. And then we're gonna have Sol running a couple of sessions on Python, so coding, for those of you who are interested in it. Like all these sessions, they're gonna get filled super fast because I know that many CPU students are supposed to attend them as well. So just make sure to keep an eye on Moodle announcements the day before, like 24 hours before the session goes live. You will see a link that opens up for you the opportunity to sign up to their workshop. Then we have, we have weekly workshops, which is exactly what we're doing today. In this page, but now also up on the walls of the CAD lab and outside on the main door, you find the main calendar with listed all the workshops that will be available this year. There might be some changes, but we will make sure we'll notify you in time if that happens. But this is kind of an overview. So I would advise everyone who's interested in a particular topic, in a particular workshop, even happening in the second semester, to note it down, right? Note it on the calendar, so to make sure not to miss it. In here, you're probably already familiar. If you already signed up, you will get updated links. As I said before, mostly like 24 hours before the session goes live to sign up for the next workshop, right, the future one. So as I said before, we're going to have Ladybug next week. Then, and I'll be assisting Mahmoud with that. Then it will be me again teaching V-Ray for Rhino, for those of you interested in rendering. That's kind of like a cool workshop. Then 2 sessions on Python, very specific. And then we'll have like data visualization, Unity, and then I'm kind of like announcing it now in advance, but we thought about something cool this year. Instead of having another workshop right the week before you guys are probably like leaving, going back home for winter, and we are kind of like leaving and go celebrating Christmas, we thought why not like gather all together in the CAD lab, have some sort of like cool like 3 hours competition, like you guys can come up with your own design, open brief. It can all be kind of like Christmas themed, right? We can have like Christmas music playing. We will have, it will be a competition, so we'll have a few prizes as well. And it's kind of like a gathering, like just to close the year all together, instead of like just a workshop where me or Jason, we are talking and you just like looking at your monitors, right? It will be more interactive. And then we don't have anything confirmed for semester 2, but you already get an outline, as I said, on the main calendar, right? And another page I want to show you is the video library one, because even though you won't be able to access these recordings straight away, you're going to have access to previous recordings from ADD in our ADD YouTube channel, which is going to be way more than this. Like you're going to be finding a lot of tutorials. They might be focusing on one specific software, or they could be focusing on a specific workflow instead. Like for instance, we receive many questions about like how to model a site, right? The topography of a site, and then like starting placing buildings of the context on top and things like that. There is one specific tutorial that just covers that. Obviously, they are kind of like targeting architecture-related tasks. So what you guys are doing could be architecture, landscape, right? But also, like, just go and check it out, because it might even be that you will find, for instance, like previous years Revit tutorials, which is going to be handy if you want to go back on what we see today live, right? This is more of an opportunity for you to make this a bit more interactive and also ask questions. Like, I will stop time to time and take a break and go around and see where you guys are at. Also, if you raise your hand, I will make sure I'll stop and get everyone up to speed, right? So, but then as a good reference, you have the recorded video library. You do also have access to Archistar and LinkedIn Learning, which are both premium platforms. So you know that nowadays, especially with the majority of architecture software, if you know how to navigate your way around the many tutorials that are online, you can definitely find like specific tutorials that are useful for you to what you're looking for, right? It's a matter sometimes of just like going on YouTube and searching with the right keywords. But if for some reason you can't find those resources, and perhaps we're not that helpful during the drop-ins, there is also these professional resources, which are Archistar and LinkedIn Learning, which the school paid for, and they are available for you for free. So I would suggest you to go and check them as well. Also, especially like Archistar, but LinkedIn Learning as well, they're really like specializing, like giving a thorough, a very comprehensive kind of like explanation of a software from the very foundation, right, to advanced level. So if you really want to invest some time in learning a software, I'm sure like you won't become BIM manager at the end of today's session, right? But if you are interested in Revit and you want to go a bit deeper with it, this is definitely the resources that are right for you. They even give you certificates as you complete the courses. So I think is time that is well spent. Okay. Not much more to say about our Moodle page. There is more and more coming, and this is not an introduction. You already had that. So I will just leave it to you to explore all the rest of the buttons that we have in the grid. There is a button for sharing your work to social medias. There is a page with useful resources, one that is kind of like outlining the deadline checklist and so on. So without further ado, I'll say we can start with today's session. So today, we're talking about Revit. When we're talking about Revit, we're automatically talking about BIM. Is there anyone in the room that has experience using Revit or any other BIM software? Is it the very first time that you see Revit? First time? Never worked with it? Have you ever seen it used in the practice? Some of you have, right? It's becoming more and more used. Any other example that comes to your mind of BIM software that is not Revit? Yeah. MicroStation. So I'll come to why we teach Revit specifically in a bit. But I think what is important to say, to mention since the beginning, is this duality, right? We're talking about Revit, Autodesk Revit, or any other BIM software, and we're kind of already narrowing this software down to a category: building information modeling. This is what BIM means. So when we're talking about building information modeling, there is an immediate difference to typical geometric modeling, which you could then categorize between like mesh modeling, so polygonal modeling, NURBS modeling, and so on. Today, session structure will be sort of like an introduction and terminology, which is what we're doing now, basically, like a slow-paced introduction to why BIM, why Revit specifically, and what we're going to get from it. I will run a quick overview using just an example file. So something you can follow along, but you don't really have to. It's not part of the exercise that then we'll move to at later stages. So we're going to have a practical exercise, and there is where I want you guys to follow what I'm doing on the screen, and then we'll just draw some conclusion. Obviously, I'll post this, as I said. I'll be opening it up to questions. There will be some sort of Q&A at the end. So we'll try to keep it interactive. Again, what is BIM? I anticipated it. Building Information Modeling. The way it's defined in here says it's an intelligent 3D model-based process that equips architecture, engineering, and construction professionals with the insight and tools to more efficiently plan, design, construct, and manage buildings and infrastructure. A bit generic, right? Is kind of like talking about more of the qualitative aspect. The fact that working with BIMs nowadays tends to equal to working more efficiently, and not just working more efficiently for architects, but working more efficiently with other professional figures. So this is the hint that we get from this brief description. And the reason why is because the model itself becomes sort of a library of information, of shared information, right? The model on its own, it's not anymore something that is there, sitting on a user interface, dead, like if you don't do anything with it, right? If you don't change it, if you don't modify, but it becomes a piece of information that is shared with several figures, and they can all come in and plug in further information. That's the idea behind BIM. So BIM integrates multidisciplinary data to create detailed digital representations that are managed in an open cloud platform for real-time collaboration. Exactly what I just said, right? Therefore, using BIM gives us better visibility, decision-making, sustainable option, cost savings on overall architecture and construction projects. And you can see the spectrum of phases and type of analysis that can be done on a BIM project. Now, nowadays, like if you guys are familiar with other software, I guess some of you have used SketchUp. Anyone? SketchUp? Grasshopper, Rhino, just Rhino, no Grasshopper. So you probably know that all these software, they're very much more focusing on the geometry side of things, right? When you're creating a cube, you know you're creating a cube because it has certain properties, right? Like the dimensions are all the same and so on. But that cube doesn't tell us much from the point of view of an architect, of an engineer, right? Of a just generic consultant. What happens with BIM instead is that every piece of geometry carries an information. That cube is not just a cube, perhaps is a table, and a table that has a cost attached to it. And so if I'm going to populate my plans with n number of that specific type of table, then I can immediately, almost like in Excel, right? I can generate a schedule telling me like how many items I'm using, and therefore how much I should be as an interior designer my client. Let's put it that way. So everything is kind of interconnected, and you get an overview in here that says is used for detailed design. Of course, you know, the more we advance with the phases, the more BIM becomes important. If at concept level, right? If you've been working, having experiences in the practice at concept level, BIM is not usually a requirement. It starts to become a requirement at further stages as we reach schematic design, detailed design, and so on. It does structural analysis. It does solar analysis, quantities, clash detections, simulations, but also all the visualization aspect, right? Virtual reality, mixed reality, and so on. That's why it's so important, it's becoming so prominent in the industry, because many different figures can jump in, say their own words, and say like, okay, perhaps there is a bit of a clashing here. This doesn't work from the structural point of view. And then architects and engineers, for instance, engineering consultants, they have a shared platform, like a visual shared platform, like a 3D one, where they can finally discuss issues, right? As I said before, there are many BIM software out there, right? You mentioned MicroStation before. Allplan, at some point during my student career, I was exposed to Allplan. That was the very first BIM software that I was exposed to, and then I forgot about it. I didn't like it. I didn't like the interface, and not great kind of like file exchange with other software I was using. It's like not the best, but again, like it's just beyond personal preference. One of the reasons why we decided to teach Revit specifically is that one, is part of the Autodesk package that you all have access to as students, right? You have the educational license, so you have full access to Revit. And second is because it's really one of the most used BIM software out there in the practice. So if you come out of here with some knowledge of Revit, that's really going to be a plus. And you can list it in your portfolio, in your resume, and add 100% practices are going to look at it. It's like, okay, if I have to choose between a person who doesn't know Revit, like same level of skills, one person doesn't know Revit, one person does know Revit, they will go all the way with the Revit person. Be careful, that being said, because the kind of like phenomenon that happened in the past was like when CAD software came out, and then like architecture offices used to be, you used to like draw with a pencil and then draft and sketch and so on. Then like people who were back then like highly specialized in CAD drawing, CAD drafting, they were becoming the so-called like CAD monkeys, right? And now we have the same thing, like the so-called like BIM monkey. So that's because there is this kind of like generational gap, and many people like you guys, like you're coming from a different generation, from the people who are running the practices right now. You have a different skill set. You are being exposed in school, as now, to these tools. And when someone will hire you, one of the reasons will be like, okay, this person can do things I can't do. It's not anymore that the experience that person coming from another generation is kind of like taking over. It's really about roles. So you're going to have a different role. And the fact that you do know how to use Revit, maybe even quite well, might be a danger, as it used to be for CAD and other software. So it's really up to you. Like they might see an opportunity for you to become people who only focus on BIM modeling. Even more than CAD, BIM, as you probably saw, is an entire world. It's bringing in so many professions. It's really complex. So even in the practice I worked for, there used to be this distinction, obviously, like people who were kind of like a bit more flexible, a bit more generalist with software, and then people who were just like focusing on using Revit or BIM software. That's why we have a distinction and also a little bit of a pay gap, because these figures are really, like people are really looking for people who are good using BIM, right? So in general, based on my experience, if you get hired as a BIM designer, a BIM specialist, a BIM manager, your pay is going to be higher than the architect one. But you will end up doing this. So you really need to like love this side of things, right? It has to be, it's sort of like a specialization, I would say. If it's not something you're in love with, I would suggest all of you to kind of like make it clear when you get hired. If one reason is you get hired is because you're good at Revit. It's like, yeah, I want to do Revit, but I also want to, keep doing architecture more at large, right? That's just a bit of a diversion. That being said, we'll start looking at the interface, and I will use a sample file. So now you all have Revit 2024 installed on your computers. I have it installed on my computer as well. For some reason, they got rid of the previous example, which to me was really easy, really handy to show things to you guys. So I would rather try and stick to that instead of, I'll be using Revit 2024 today for the exercise we're doing together. So we'll be exactly same UI, same icons, right, same menus. But just for the sake of showing you an example, I'm gonna open Revit 2023. Okay, and I'll be talking a little bit about the interface, but I wanna do it opening the software. So you guys can open the software because the interface will be pretty much the same. but I'll just be running through a different example that is pre-made. So far, any question, can be anything, like general questions, like why are you interested, or maybe like considerations, why are you particularly interested in learning Revit versus another software, for instance? Who has experience with Rhino? None of you? SketchUp? Some of you, right? Okay. Yeah. So I'll try and make like highlight differences between Revit and SketchUp then. I tend to do it with Rhino, but if nobody used that, it doesn't make much sense. Yeah, I'll let you open the software. You're gonna open 2024, it's fine. You should be having like a similar homepage to the one I do have. Few things might differ. It's probably going to be like mainly it's going to be like these sample projects, right? That's what I said before. Not that they are not good, right? But they're really heavy, really difficult to show on the screen for certain things that I want to pop up immediately to you as well as using the software. So I'm going to use these architecture sample project in here. You guys, if you want, you can open another sample, like up to you. I would suggest if you have to open a sample, do use the architecture one, just because it carries certain information, like basically the main setup, the template, will be closer to what we are looking at. So, when I open the sample file, basically, what do I have in front of me? This is kind of like another landing page, right? It's a landing page that is telling me a little bit about, it's just like a presentation of the project. I've been seeing these, the kind of like landing page being used in different ways depending on the practice. There are certain practices that they kind of have like this template with their logo, and then they have a code for each project, so they know exactly when they open a file that they are on the right file, right? There is a code identifying that specific project and what stage it is and so on. It doesn't really look like other modeling software if we think, for instance, about SketchUp or Rhino, again, right? The typical like split view with like 3D view, side view, I don't know, like top view, right? Those are the main ones. It looks different, and it looks more kind of like geared towards documentation. The reason why is because with Revit, it's not just about modeling, as I said before, it's about serving, it's about documentation, it's about creation of content that can then be presented through the software. So it's really like well thorough software, like a 360 software that can cover so many aspects. I want you now to focus on the user interface. So in here, we do have a board. Most likely all of you, doesn't matter like what sample you open, you're going to have a board with a few information on the project. Indeed, the way this has been designed, at least in 2023, is that you have a chart in here and you have a series of links. So this is not just showcasing one of the potentiality of the software, which is like creating lists and charts. Remember what I said before about the table, right? How many tables are in the project, and I can have a list and maybe the cost next to it. Like they're using it in a creative way to listing a series of tasks and series of tutorials. So you have, these are links to tutorials to do what is listed in there. But they also have some visualizations, right? So they have some renderings. So they are immediately telling you, this Revit is not really a rendering software, but it could be. Like, since you already have everything in place, you could potentially do visualizations in Revit as well. So this is our main view. And at the moment, it's just like a 2D view because it's a board, right? There's not much we can do with it. If we look around and discover a bit more about this interface, up here, we have this so-called ribbon menu, right? So many software, they have this top bar, which is going to be horizontal, and conventionally we call it the ribbon, right? The ribbon, as in many other software, and you will see some similarities with other Autodesk software, like AutoCAD and so on. they are divided by specific themes, right? Specific categories. In here, compared to AutoCAD, where it's pretty much everything is once again more related to design, drawing, drafting, right? In here, as I said before, we have so many disciplines coming in. So different areas of the ribbons might pertain to different professional figures. So there might be a part of the software that is more geared towards engineers, and you don't even have to touch it. One of them is a bit more of use for, say, like MEP consultants, right? And indeed, you have architecture just as a label. So it makes us think that most of the architectural elements will be found in here, right? Now everything is grayed out. Don't pay attention to that. It's just because, once again, we're in a kind of a 2D environment. We cannot really create 3D geometries on a board, right? This is like a board is ready to be printed. That's the reason why we can't really model in here. We have structure. So you see something that, is there any one of you who has like some engineering background in here? No, but I mean, like columns, slabs, right? Rebars, foundations, all these terms should kind of like resonate. Steel, again, we have specific types for steels, and so on and so forth, right? We have massing and site, where maybe like those of you who are coming from like, say, landscape department might find certain relatable elements, and so on and so forth. Really, you don't need to know all of this. So this is the good news. The ribbon up here, you're gonna be using just a very few items in terms of like designing, modeling inside Revit. What I want you to focus more on is here on the left, right? Here, we should all be having the same, which is properties on the top and project browser on the bottom, right? So properties highlights indeed the attributes, the properties that pertain to the specific view that we have open, or the specific object selected in the view. So this is going to be a dynamic window. It's going to change according to what we select, what we pick in the scene. So at the moment, it's not telling us much. It's just saying like, this is just a sheet. Basically, it's a board. If I scroll down, I'm going to get like few information about maybe like the size, the template, and things like that, because it's not really an architectural element that we're talking about. But if for a moment, just go down in the project browser, which instead is a bit of a map of what's in the project right now. So all that is in the project is kind of like listed in here. So if I search for 3D views and I go to just 3D, you can really pick any 3D views. So here I am in the model, and now you see that here at the left, properties change to 3D view, and it's telling me more about this 3D view. So like for instance, the projection mode. The projection mode is orthographic. I can come in here and change this to perspective, and the view will update accordingly, right? So it's just like a series of information and attributes that I can dynamically play with, and they will have an immediate effect on the view that I have open. Now, this is our 3D model, and the main difference, again, like bringing in the comparison with SketchUp and those software, the main difference is that while in those software, you basically do the modeling part, and then you basically extrapolate drawings, sections, visualizations from the same model, but everything is pretty much going to result into an output that you will need to bring out from the software, and then maybe like, I don't know, like put into Photoshop or post-production, or you will just get an image, you will get static elements pretty much, right? In Revit, there is not really such a thing as a static entity. Like everything is interconnected, everything is parametric. Is there anyone who ever heard the term parametric design, parametric architecture? Yeah? Any idea what it means? Mm-hmm. Well, of course, it's debatable. There's been there's been a bit of theory developing around the term, not really parametric architecture, a bit more parametricism. That's kind of like it's an ism, it's a different thing. But when we're talking about parametric architecture from the mere technical point of view, it means that whatever we model, right, has parameters that define that entity, and that's a dynamic entity that can be manipulated through basically the modification of these parameters. So while, as I said before, you have this cube, right? This cube into SketchUp. If you want to turn that cube into maybe like an elongated column, you will need to extrude the top face, or you need to scale it 1D, like things like that, right? In Revit, you will have an element that is not just a cube, but is a column, right? So it carries certain properties. It carries certain properties, and as you have a list of information right here on the left for the views, you will have the same for pretty much every element you pick in Revit. I'm going to demonstrate that because I think it's quite an important aspect. So I'm selecting a window now. You can do that on your sample file, whatever it is on 2024. If I'm picking this window here, I do get parameters here. What are my parameters? The height, the width, for instance, like those are the main ones. Can I change them? Of course I can. I can come in here and I change these parameters, and they will have an immediate effect on the window. But not only, I could potentially change the window itself with another typology that is preloaded. And once again, is a parametric model. What in Revit is called a family, parametric family. So if I come in here and I change this, I don't have any windows, like how lucky. Let me go down here and see if there is any window I can load. Crazy. Okay, I'm just gonna run a quick demonstration then. For some reason, my Revit 2023 didn't really download all the libraries. That's the reason. I'm not gonna be able to use a skylight because that is a different element, right? It's not a vertical glaze partition. So I'm simply gonna grab this one and say edit type. I'm gonna duplicate, and I'm gonna call this ADD window, which will be a new typology. Say okay, and now you see that ADD window has a different size, which I can once again I can go in here and change, and maybe this is going to be 3000. Oops. And what would happen in any other software? There will be a clashing moment where, okay, I enlarge the window, but then the geometry that defines the wall will overlap with that portion of the window that got scaled up. So we need to go and fix. Why? Because that's only taken from the geometric side, from the geometric point of view. While in here, this extrusion here, if I pick it, is not just a simple extrusion. It's a wall. So it carries certain information, and one of them is whenever I put a window on it or a door, that wall will be parametrically flexible and accommodate that window, that door. So you see the potential of it. Imagine you have to present this project to your client, and it's like, is there any other option for the windows? I don't really like those windows. Like, that's not what I asked for. Right? And you, on the fly, could potentially like change the model, and everything is interconnected. Think back about this. So if you had a list with prices, and you have another price attached to the new window you're presenting, you can immediately present a new bill to the client and say, like, this is going to be, like the total cost if we change all the windows for type B. So quite efficient way of working. That being said, this is just to give you an overview. As I said before, like the cool thing is like from this model, you can generate pretty much any drawing and any visualization. So if you start to scroll down here, and in the 2024 sample that you got, you have even more sections here, more drawings, right? So you can start to explore them. Basically, when you open drawings in the project browser, they will just start to kind of like pile up in here until you close them. When you close them, it's not that you're losing anything. They're still in the project. They're just simply not previewed. That's it. So I can go in here in the floor plans and check level 1, for instance. And if I zoom in, this is a plan that is being generated from the model. It's not a new drawing. It's attached to the model. And I'll show you. If I go to view, and maybe, let me close this title sheet in here and go back to view, and I do tile views. So I'm splitting between the 3D and the plan. If now I change something, this is ground level. If I change something at ground level, let's say I grab this. Not sure what I want to do with that really. Okay, let me do it here. So basically I'm grabbing this curtain wall here, right? And then, I don't know, I'm just reducing the size of it. I'm making this into an open space. See, 3D drawings, everything is interconnected. There is a problem as well. Like you see, like here I have these rooms that are color coded, and it's providing me with the area automatically. Why? Because they're all enclosed. Now this is not enclosed anymore, and therefore it's saying, oh wait, this is not enclosed, I cannot provide the area. So then if I go back and I will have somewhere else like a big schedule with all the areas divided by different rooms and areas of the house, there is going to be kitchen and dining that is missing. And so the total area now will not correspond to reality. Why? Because it's not enclosed anymore. So that also exposes us to another issue, which is if you screw a SketchUp model, it might be easier to fix it. If you mess up with the Revit file, it's going to be a bit more difficult. And if that happens in the practice, and I've seen that happening, it's been like a chasing of like, who did that? How do we do it now? Like it starts to be a bit of like series of informations, like wrong informations that pile up, and it starts to inform other design choices and so on. That's why there are specific figures that are making sure, and they are taking care, making sure that the model fully works, and it's and they're kind of like supervisioning it. Let's put it that way. Right? They're constantly like controlling that everything is fine. Cool. I think it's been enough for talking, I guess. Is there any question before we dive into actual modeling something and doing something? All clear? Have I been clear? Like too slow, too fast? Don't be afraid. Like now that we properly start and you will have to follow what I'm doing on the screen, don't be afraid of like stopping me, like raise your hand and say like, sorry, can you go back? Yes? So that might be related to the type of template that you open. So different templates will carry different units, basically. Now we're going to go over and I'll show you how to open a brand new file. We'll start from scratch and to set it up properly with metric system. Okay, I'm going to close this because this is 2023. I want to use 2024, which is the one you will be using. So let's reopen the software. If you are, if you're using now, if you have, you don't have to close the software necessarily, but if you have your sample, architectural sample open, you can just close that project and it will bring you back to the main homepage. Before we start, did you download the material that was uploaded on Moodle for today's exercise? If you haven't, all you need to do is, once again, like go to our Moodle page. And then if you scroll to weekly workshops, and then select Revit, there's, like here at the bottom, you get this link to the case study. So today we're gonna recreate the Blaus house, a pretty simple villa. So it's a real case study, right? We try to replicate it in Revit. And in here, you will find a folder which you have to unzip. So make sure you download it and then you unzip it. And inside the folder, you will have basically series of images and drawings. So this is the villa that we will be trying to recreate. Anyone familiar with this project? Yeah? Nice. So all these drawings have been set up so that we can bring them in and use them as a reference to start building our project. Not always you're starting with some external reference, but for the sake of this exercise, I think it's good to have some visual reference to start with, right? Especially since it's the very first time that you touch on the software. So just make sure you download it and you unzip the folder.
How do you unzip?
You can do simply like right click on it and then unzip it. Go back. Okay, so we have a mixture of images and drawings, which is good because images are good references also for materiality and to get us an idea of how the elevations are working. And then the drawings, we're going to be using the drawings. We're going to be scaling them, getting them to real scale, and then we'll be using them to create our 3D basically. So we'll start from 2D and bring it to 3D. Cool. So in here, instead of opening an existing sample, an existing project, like a preloaded one, what I want you to do is to go under Models in here on the left and click on New. So now, this is what we were talking about, right? The templates. How do we pick the right template? My suggestion for all of you is to click on the drop-down menu and select Architectural Template. Down here, you want to make sure that you have Create New Project checked and not Project Template. Okay? Then simply press OK. Okay, so like compared to before, basically our landing page is level 0. It's a plan view. There is nothing in there. All I can see in here is these little marks, little icons. This is basically the 4 elevations, right? It's just indicated that way by default on Revit. There is not much. If I scroll through the project browser in here, which is where I can get and pick different views, I can open 3D views. I see that I do have a default 3D view. I can double click on it, that will open it. And now in here, I see that I do have a couple of levels that are preloaded, obviously something that I can change. And this also brings in the question of like, how do I navigate in the scene on Revit? So when you have the 3D, you will see that you got this view cube that now it's being used in pretty much every Autodesk software. So you should be used to it. So you can either like grab the view cube and like move around. You can get a preset point of view, like for instance, this kind of like axle, right? You can get side view or a top view and so on. I don't really use the view cube, so I want you to learn the way of navigating the scene using your keyboard and mouse. So to zoom in and zoom out, pretty simple. Just use the mouse wheel, okay? Then if you want to pan around, press Alt and middle mouse button. Keep them pressed while you move around. If you want to orbit around, Shift and middle mouse button. Just remember these commands for when you are on 3D mode. You also do have like this little 2D navigator, which is kind of like fun to use sometimes. I don't really use it much, but basically if you click in here, this is gonna follow you, especially on 3D, on the 3D view. And you can simply click on zoom and then move, and this will zoom. If you click on orbit, this will activate the orbit and so on. I'm gonna close it. I'm not using it much. I haven't seen many people even in the practice using it, so up to you, but you know you have that option. Okay, that being said, we now have level 0, 3D, don't have much information in there. We look at floor plans, we see that by default we have 0 and level 1. We have all the elevations, east, north, south, and so on. What's in the elevation? Just the levels, once again. Now, if I want to start to build this house, right? Let's go back to what information, what type of information we do have, right? So I'm gonna open these drawings. That is a collection of all the drawings we do have. How would you tackle this? Like, how would you start?
Columns.
Who said columns? Who said that? You said it, columns. What do you mean by columns?
Like, to define the area of it. Like this sort of 8.
Ah, you would start with that.
Yeah.
Careful. Look at that drawing. What level do you think that one is?
Oh, could be the second.
Yeah.
And not ground floor.
We call this the ground floor. Most likely this is going to be level 1.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But the thing is, the good thing is we do have all those drawings. And in theory, with all those drawings together, we should be able to recreate the 3D. We should be having all the tools. So what is the idea? What do we do with those drawings? At the moment, those drawings are on a separate file, they're just an image. So what do we do? Correct. We bring them into Revit and we scale them because who knows what scale they're gonna be. Cool, so let's start that. If I'm gonna start with level 0, where do you want to be positioned, ideally? On level 0, right? So we wanna make sure we are on level 0. And then here is where we want to import our level 0 drawing, our level 0 plan. So up here, you remember like in the ribbon, right? You do have insert, an insert tab. This works pretty much for all the drawings you're trying to bring in. Drawings, other files, references, and so on. Topography as well. So I'm gonna do import image. You could do link image. I'm gonna do import image, so we have it there. Click on it. Obviously, I will bring up the path. So I'm gonna search for it. Depending on where you saved your folder, if it's in the downloads or on your desktop. So they are named accordingly, right? So it's easy to spot them. You have level 00 in here. So this is the one we want to bring in. So you click on it and then you say open, and you will get this cross, right? Doesn't really matter where you drop it as long as you don't start like placing it somewhere in the emptiness, completely random, right? I will still try and place it at the very center just by clicking once. Cool. Now we're going to do the same thing with level 1. So I'm going to position myself on level 1. Going back to insert, import image, and this time I'm going to grab level 1. Open, and again, dropping it at the center. All good so far? So next step will be importing the roof level, or level 2. There is a problem, we don't have it. What do we do? The idea is that we will have to create a new level for it, right? We don't have it by default. So probably the best viewport, right, for us to work on when we're creating new vertical levels is, I would say, is a side view. Could be an elevation, right? So I'm gonna scroll through in here and I'll find elevation. Doesn't really matter which one you pick, I guess. Can do with the first one, east elevation. And you see that we have level 0, which is at 0. Level 1, which is at 4,000. 4,000 means 4 meters because Revit by default use millimeters as units. Okay, so this is at 4,000. We don't know yet what the right measurements are. What matters is that we do have another level on which we can project the new image as a reference. So we have multiple ways to create a new level. If you go to architecture, all the way to the right, you have this tab called level. And you see that when I hover on top of any command, I get, sorry, my mouse is moving by itself, so it's very difficult to show you, but okay, if I just leave the mouse there, although it keeps moving, spooky mouse. So you get a preview of what that tools is doing, right? And you also get, in brackets, you get a shortcut for it. So double L means new level. And then if you just like leave the mouse in there, you got this window showing you exactly what it's going to do, both graphically and also as a little description as a text, basically. So I'm gonna click on it, say new level, and then if I'm coming to my drawing, you see that I'm basically gonna pick where I want my level to be. Make sure up here you have make plan view checked. So many times when you will be using commands in Revit, you want to keep an eye on this green bar that shows up, because as it does in Rhino, for instance, on like the top bar, where basically the dialog box when you are using any tool, right? It's telling you information about the tool you're using, and if there is any dynamic information that you need to plug into, these will do the same. So at the moment we're drawing a level, but we don't just want to have a level, we want to have a level that defines specifically a plan view, right? Because that's what we need, a plan view where to copy in the image. That being said, I'm gonna drop it somewhere here for now. You see this, I get like a preview of where I'm drawing. This automatically snapping, so to run the numbers. So this will be like 2.2 meters above level 1. So that will be at level, at height 6 meters, 0.2, I guess. Yeah, if I don't move anymore. So just do one click, and then you get to do the second click just for the way you want to orient it. Simply click once you have selected it, out doesn't matter. We'll change that. It doesn't matter now. So just draw it above level 1. I would say just maybe like not 100 meters above level 1, right? Just let's be realistic. So once we have it, we can align things, right? If we want to make it look right. Oops. This is now going to be called level 2. If you want to change the name of a level, all you need to do is like double click on the name, and this is going to be, I don't know, like roof level, okay? Press enter. I will get a pop-up window asking me, would you like to rename corresponding views? I'm going to say yes. And then you see that in here, right, in the project browser, I got a new level called roof level. Now, I said the height doesn't matter. Let's say these had to be like 6,000. I can simply click in here and say 6,000. Or let's say I don't really know what's the height of it, but I do know that there needs to be a relationship where this is at least 3 meters above level 1. I can simply click in here in this dimension between the 2 levels and say, keep 3 meters distance between the 2. And so this will automatically reach 7 meters. Cool. Did you all manage to create a new level?
Yeah. How do you align the levels?
To align levels, I'll show you. Not a big deal really, but you can grab this extension. You see like these little circles, and you can just like align them. You will basically Revit will smart snap so that you align them. And if you lock all of them, basically, when you grab one of these extensions and you drag it, it can be handy sometimes, right? Especially if you're showing it in the drawings and you want to see the grid, you can simply extend all of them at once. But let's focus now on importing the last level, right? So we have level 1. I have my level 1 in here. Level 0, it's in there. Roof level, it's not there yet. So I need to do the same thing. I will go again to insert, import image, and then I'm gonna pick, this time I'm gonna pick roof line. And again, I'm gonna drop it at the center. They're not aligned, they're not on scale, so this is what we need to check next. How do we check that? Any guess? How do we make sure this is on scale? Louder, louder.
Since all the drawings seem to have a scale bar, maybe we can just measure like 1 meter and then assign it to 1 meter.
Yes, that's the idea, right? There is a scale bar, so we have some visual reference. Thanks God, we do have it. So this is something that we can use. Yeah?
Sorry, I don't have a rooftop in my floor plan. Do I just create one or like?
You don't have a roof level.
Yeah.
That's what we just did. We created a new level.
No, like it doesn't show.
Ah, it doesn't show. Let me see. So you created it already, but it doesn't show. What you did is therefore you can create automatically Okay. So level, yes.
Get the level. How much to get the level?
You can't get the level. Let me check.
Because we need the correlation. So we need
It's pretty much the same. So are we all here? So like next step, as your colleague anticipated, is to bring this to scale, right? So I would start from level 0. We do have a scale bar in here, and we know that from here to here is going to be 1 meter, from here to there is going to be 10 meters. So if you move to modify, modify all the way to the right, you get the typical instrument that you also get in other softwares, just like trim, scale, move, copy, and so on. And we want to use scale, which is right here. You can even call it with RE on the keyboard. I'm going to click on scale. Actually, I want to select the image first, right? Because this is what I want to scale. Then I click on scale, and then once again, make sure to double check the green bar in here, and make sure this is set to graphical. So then my cursor will change. You'll get this little target next to it. I'm going to zoom in to be as precise as possible, and I'm going to grab middle point in this 0 vertical bar, and then going all the way to 10 meters to grab the second one. Click again, and now you see that if I move, I'm basically scaling the image. So now I want to, instead of going randomly to the right or to the left, I want to manually type 10,000. Now if these guys here, the elevation, are a bit on the way, you can always move them. Okay. Were you able to scale it? Any issue? All good? It's not working. Okay, so next step, we'll basically need to do the same for every single view, basically. It's a bit tedious. So this is a good way for you to practice as well. I'm gonna do it now. You will do it in the background. But before we do that, I think we have some more help coming from the drawings, which are the grids. And we can use those grids to then scale, like just visually scale the next drawings instead of just using the scale bar. Why? Because it won't be just scaling them, but it will be also aligning them at the same time. So there is a grid command, which is, if you go back to architecture, is right below to the levels that we used before. So you can click on grid. Let's say this is pretty much where we want our model to sit, right? So I'm simply gonna click and drag on where these red grids are. This is gonna be 1, this is gonna be 2. You can obviously align it. And then there is gonna be 2 more on the other side. Yeah.
I don't have the option to write 10,000.
You don't have the option. If it doesn't show you, simply start to write it. It should pick it up. Try. I'm gonna get to you in a second. These grids, we can change the names if you wish. So if you know, like in construction drawings, for instance, you normally have kind of like a numeric series of grids which are going in one direction, and there is like alphabetic order for the others. So perhaps this is 1, 2, and these ones will be A, B. So you just double click on the number, you change the name. And now the cool thing would be that you'll see now, if you move from level 0 to level 1, the grid will still be there. So you're going to be able to read the grid through. And sorry guys, everyone, let's do this check together, because I noticed, like, just walking around, like some of you don't still have it at the right scale. If you want to double check the scale, what you can do, you can use this measure between 2 reference tool, which is also found under modify. So you have measure, you can come in here, click on the first reference point, which is going to be 0, and then the second one, which is going to be here where it says 10. If it's something close to 10,000, you're at the right scale. Okay, if it's like 5,000, 50,000, like definitely not the right scale, so we need to scale it back again. Okay, so once again, how do you scale? So if the scale is wrong, what do you do? I'm going to show you the scale command one last time. So you select the geometry or the object you want to scale, okay? Now I'm level 1. Let me go back to level 0. Level 0, okay? And you're going to do scale after you select it, making sure it's set to graphical in here. And then click on the first reference point. Don't click anything. Second click is on the second reference point. Again, don't click anything. Right now, if you zoom out, you will see that if you move the cursor, you're basically scaling the image. But instead of clicking, we are gonna type. I'm gonna type 10,000. 10 meters equals to 10,000 millimeters. And then press enter. And you'll have these at a proper scale. Okay? And then to double check that once again, measure tool, 1 click, next click, should be around 10,000. Yes? Okay, need to speed up now. We're gonna repeat the same commands for a bit, so you'll get used to them. Our level 0 is okay, it's perfect. It's on scale and it's perfectly aligned to the grid because we aligned the grid to level 0, okay? So now if we move to level 1, we see that Well, that's pretty much on scale almost. I can tell, just by luck, right? But it's not a line, definitely not a line. So the next tool I want to use is the move tool. I want to align this to the grid. So I'm gonna click on it, and then this time I'm gonna use move, which is quite intuitively these kind of like two axis arrow type of icon. Move MV, click on it. It will ask you to pick a point. The point I want to pick is the moment where these two grids cross on the image, because that's going to be aligning them to the corner of my grids. So I'm going to click in here, right at the center, and then I want to uncheck constraint. Why? Because constraint will just constrain the movement to one axis, right? So it will only let me move in one direction or the other, like Y or X. I want to uncheck constraint, so now I can move it freely. And if I get closer here, I get this cross or snap, which means this is the point where the two grids are crossing each other. So if I click in here, then my image is going to be aligned. Now, I said this is pretty much on scale just by looking at it, which it's true, it is, but it's not exactly on scale, right? So there is still like a bit of an error in here, and we want to make sure we use again the scale command, but this time I'm not just gonna type in any number, I'm gonna use the grid to scale this object. So I know that from here to where the red grids cross, so here, like this dimension, we'll need to take over until where the two grids cross again, my two reference grids. So if I click in here, this will automatically adapt, right? I'm just taking one dimension of the rectangle. It's pretty much always the same command. So we need to do the same thing now at the roof level, right? So I'm gonna pick the roof level. And once again, very first thing I need to do is aligning the red grid to the actual grid that I drew in Revit. So I'm gonna get the move command, grab this point in here, where the two red grids intersect, and align it to where my grids intersect. Now you can see that this is way smaller, right, compared to the level before. So this definitely needs to be scaled accordingly. So I'm gonna click on scale again with the image selected, scale. First point will be, again, the point that I just moved and aligned to the grid. Second point will be this dimension of my plan, and then I simply extend it until it touches the second grid. So if I did this right, now all the grids should be matching. So the red grid should be overlapping with the one I drew in Revit.
So would you mind to do it again?
Yeah. Gonna do it again. So you see now, guys, please pay attention. This is the third time that we do exactly the same thing, right? And we need to introduce way more. We haven't done any 3D yet. So please pay attention, because then we need to move on. We are running out of time. So now we do have this, which is a flat image, and we do have our new reference, which is the grid. We know that all the levels below, they are aligned and at the same scale that is indicated by this grid, right? The plan is taking over this grid. So how do we do the same in here? We select this image, and first thing we want to do is to move it and make sure that this intersection point coincides with the intersection point of the grid. So I'm gonna get this intersection point between grid 1 and grid B. And that's for the alignment. Second thing that we need to think about is getting this back to scale once again, right? So I'm gonna grab the, first selecting the image always, and then I'm gonna get the scale command, pick again the first reference point, the second reference point, which is gonna be the other red grid, and then I know that basically this dimension has to cover this full size. So I'm basically stretching it, and as I'm stretching it, you see the image will scale up. So if I've done everything right, the top grid will match my red top grid. So go all the way here, click, and then let's go and check. Yes, they perfectly match. Now, we do have all our plans in place. Okay? What are we missing? We're still missing the elevations. We don't really have elevations, we do have sections. Okay? So let's take a look at the sections and try and get and guess where they are. If I go back to my images, you see here's the sections, right? I don't really have an indication, and unfortunately I don't have an indication on the drawing where the section's been cut, but we can kind of like easily guess it, right? So these first section, to me, it looks like there's been I might be completely wrong, but like there is like a cut somewhere in here, right? And this dashed line to me indicates that there is like the staircase running behind this wall, which is this guy. And then we have this section, which is looking at the staircase. There is a window that is cut through in here and in there. So most likely is a section that is cutting through here. I'm gonna do that in Revit. So in Revit, you can create sections, right? So I'm gonna close this. I'm gonna go to level 0 because it's gonna be easier for us to basically to find where the sections are looking at level 0, where we have the interiors and according to what we just said. And there is a specific tool to create section, which is called section, exactly. Don't need to be too creative, just section. So you find it under view. Right here next to 3D view, you have section with this arrow, right? So if I click on it, now I can draw my section. It doesn't really matter where you draw it. By the way, you can also draw it in the wrong spot and then you can still move it and adjust it. So roughly, let's say I'm gonna draw it somewhere here and say, like, so first click, second click, and say that probably that section that I located before, I'm actually looking to the other side, right? So this is the wrong way of looking at. So it's quite easy to reverse it. You have these double arrows in here. If you click on them, it says flip section. It will just like flip it on the other side. Another thing I want you to pay attention when it comes to section is this dashed line. I don't know if you can see, it's like light blue dashed line all around my section. This indicates the view range, meaning that everything beyond this line won't really be visible on my section. So I want to make sure to hold this down so that it fully includes my building, all right? So everything will be visible. And this is going to be my section A, whatever. Oops. Let me know when you all drew the section. Okay? No questions? Great. So this is our section 1. Now, if we scroll down the project browser, you'll see that now a section has been created, right? We have a list of sections in here, and we only have section 1 because that's the only section that we have in place. Theory, we should be able to right-click and rename it, at least from here. Yeah, rename it. If you want to change the name to like section A or horizontal, whatever, there is where you can change it. So this is our first section. We need to draw the second one. And we say the second one is kind of easy to draw because it's cutting through this window and then cutting through this big window here. So I'm gonna do exactly the same thing again, section, and this time positioning myself somewhere in here and then all the way to here. Extending the view range so that it includes the full building, right? And then I'm gonna have a section 1 that took the place of the previous section 1 because we call it section A. So once again, right click, rename section B, and press enter. So 2 new views got created automatically, which are the sections. If I click on them, like let's start with section A, which is the longer. There is not much in here, really. This is kind of like a crop view, so you can always extend it to see through, right? It's just gonna kind of like crop what you see. But there is nothing in there. We got our grid, we got our levels, but we don't have any drawing because we haven't imported any section in here yet. So we'll have to do exactly the same thing we did previously with the plans, but with the section now. I can already tell that, for instance, these guys are a bit on the way, so I'm gonna move them all the way. And you see that I'm kind of like starting creating a 2D grid that could represent my levels and the extensions of my building, right? Again, like this crop view, you are free to extend it, make it larger, right? So that it's not on the way. Yeah. What do I show them? Basically, there is this, which is a crop view at the moment, like copying the view what's visible. You just extend it, and then you can show it. And then if you want to these levels, you want to move them. Get this done. Okay. Yeah. It's most likely because there is. Okay. Everyone, please pay attention. If you don't see the levels, 99% the reason will be because the crop window is cropping through what you see. So you just want to uncrop the view, basically, make it larger so that everything is included. With middle mouse button in the 2D views, with middle mouse you can pan, okay? So next, we need to import an image. So doing the same way as we did before, all right? So I'm gonna go to Insert, Import Image, and this time I'm gonna select Section Long. Open, place it somewhere in here, right? And now we will be aligning it and scaling it properly. So I know that I again have 2 axes as references, right? Because you might be like, oh, wait a second, I only have one set of grids in one direction. I don't have the others anymore, so I can't really frame my plan. Now we're talking about a section. We do have other information. We have the levels. And we do know that level 1 and roof level, they are not there yet. They are not at the right height. But we do know for sure that level 0 is where we dictate it to be. So level 0, in my opinion, can definitely be aligned with our ground floor. That makes sense. So like finish floor, ground floor. So what we could do, we once again, with the image selected, we grab the move tool, we pick this point, and we move it where the grid cross. But there is a problem, because if we want to use the grid system to scale it, we need to remember that the grids that we drew always need to align to the red ones. So at the moment they are not aligned. This is the point where everything aligns. So we need to move it again, but this time where the grid lands and align it this way. And after we've done that, now we can finally scale this. So yeah, give me 1 second. Just gonna do this for everyone. So select the image back again from where the two grids intersect to the second red grid, and just extend it once again to where our grid intersects. So now grid 1, grid 2 are perfectly aligned to red grid, and level 0, okay, is level to finish floor for level 0. That means that potentially what type of information can we get from this now? For sure, that level 1 and roof level are completely wrong, right? If anything, level 1 should be pulled down of I don't know how much. Looks like should be around 3 meters, 0.2. And I'm just like eyeballing it for now. And I'm gonna do the same with roof level, which should pretty much fall at 5 meters, 0.7. Okay. How do I? The levels. You simply click on them, and with the left mouse button, just by pressing it and move them down, that basically will drag them down. Yep. It doesn't really matter, but what you could do is go and select any of those, grab these circle and move them all the way to the left, and then here again. Yeah, first of all, what I need to underline this to level 0, so that I did it in 2 steps. So the first thing would be so the first thing I would do is by grabbing these and here, but then I can I use this one, because to me, let's say this is where level 0 is. Like 0 to me, it's up to you. So to me, let's say 0 above sea level is here. The only problem is that I have to stick this on the wall and try to start I picture it so small. So I need to move again. So now it's perfectly matching. Because now I know that to get this on scale, the two red grids will need to match. So it's not going to look up, so it's not perfectly scale. So what I can do now, I can scale this here. How did you do here, and bring it here. So now this is perfectly on scale. Now we can start making this is right. This is aligning here. And now this is right. Okay, we're gonna do the same with the other section. Okay, so this was section A. If we jump to section B now, we have the same issue, right? It's cropping our view, so I'm just gonna grab this extension here for the windows that is cropping the view. I'm just gonna extend them, can do the same in here with the levels. Select one of them, pick the circle of the extension, move it all the way to the left. If these are too extended, I can move them back, right? We are expecting our section to be somewhere in here. So again, what will I do? What am I going to do? I'm going to import the short section. So I'm just gonna go to import image and section short. Open, place it somewhere in here. And then once again, first thing that I need to do is finding the right alignment. So I'm gonna pick this point in here, which has to sit on level 0. So select the image first, move, pick this point where the wall and the floor kind of like touch, and align it to where my grids intersect. Second, now I want the red grid to align to these grids. So again, move, and do this. So now we're pretty much there in terms of scale, but not fully. So I can tell that I need to scale it back again. So again, selecting the image, scaling from here to where the other red grid is, and make it coincide with my grid. Now it should be perfectly on scale, and you see that indeed the levels are pretty much matching, right? Now all my drawings, sections, and plans are on scale. I have all the information to build this 3D model. Yes? Okay, we need to speed up a lot. Right. We probably won't be able to finish the full exercise today, but at least I want to get to show you as much as possible, especially because we haven't seen modeling yet. I really want to show you the difference of modeling in Revit versus modeling in other software. So now we created the perfect platform for us to go and model in 3D. We have all the references in place. So I do have my sections, elevations, so now the levels are at the right height. Okay, so I'm ready to start and draw some interiors. Oh, actually, before I draw the interiors, let at least draw the perimeter walls. So go back to level 0. We know that the perimeter walls, if we look at the images, they will go, so basically it's these ones we're talking about. They will up all the way to level 1. So when we draw walls in Revit, we can constrain them to levels so that if a level changes in the future, the wall will still constrain by that. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm going to position myself on level 0. And under architecture, I'm going to search for wall. Click on wall. In here, remember what I said before during the introduction, we're going to have different typologies for walls. So if you click in this drop-down menu, you get all the typologies. So let's see which one I could use. Maybe wall, rectangular, wall 300. This is going to be 300 mils concrete, quite generic. Yeah, I'm happy with that. So I'm going to use this one. And now that I have selected it, check back the green ribbon in here. It says the height is unconnected. Are we happy with this? I'm not, because I know it has to reach level 1. So I'm going to click in here and say no, attach it to level 1. And indeed, down here is grayed out because I can't touch it anymore, but it says that the full height is going to be 3.2 meters, which is exactly where my level 1 is. So perfect. Another thing that I can change is the location line. So when I'm going to draw the wall, I'm going to draw it based on what? Center line, exteriors, interiors. I'm going to do, you could, but in this case, I'm going to pick the exterior, so I want to do exteriors. So I'll do finish face exterior, because this is where my grid is. And then in here, sorry, before coming in here, you have chain. You want to make sure that chain is selected. Chain means that when you draw a wall, like you might draw a segment that you're going to draw you're going to pick the next point, it will connect these walls. Otherwise, they will end up being all disconnected. If that makes sense. So you want to keep it checked. And then the next step is to come in here and decide the way we want to draw this wall. Now, these walls are basically a rectangle. So why not just grabbing the rectangle tool? Clicking in here, picking the first point of the rectangle, which is where the two grids intersect. And then you see that I'm starting drawing these rectangular system of walls. So all the way to the opposite corner, click back again, and you have your wall. You don't really see it in here. I mean, I can see it, right? But if you move to the 3D, you definitely see it. And you see that this is connected in height to level 1. If I had to come in here and change the level 1 to be, I don't know, 3 meters, 0.5, right? The wall is connected. It's all parametric. This is what we were talking about, right? This is the description of, the definition of like technical parametric side of things. So I'm gonna go back because I want to keep it at 3.2 meters. But we got our exterior walls. And now you could say, down here you have a preview option. So you can say, oh, I actually want to see it shaded, or I think we are in shaded now. I can see it with texture. I can see it realistic, right? You can click realistic. It's going to show you a bit of a material. It's not the best. You can have hidden line, and you can turn on the shadows, right? Okay, up to you the type of visualization you want to choose. Doesn't really matter now. What I want to do, I want to go back to level 0. Okay, and now I want to be the floor, right? I want to be to build a floor plate for this house. It doesn't have a floor plate at the moment. So level 0, this is where I want to be positioned. And again in here, under the architecture tab, you do have floor. Okay, I'm gonna click on floor. Not gonna save for now, but could be a good idea if you wanna give it a save. And then same as for the wall, I have different typologies. I have different families, right? Different types. I can click down here. I don't have so many, probably you have more. But let's say I'm gonna pick floor ground bearing, right? It makes sense. Where is this going to be positioned? This is gonna be on level 0. So it's good, it's where I want it to be. It has no offset in height. What can I do? What are the different options for me to draw it? I can either, once again, use rectangle tool and just draw exactly the same rectangle. I could draw lines one by one, or I could pick the walls. I'm not gonna pick the walls for now. I'm just gonna do exactly the same thing, rectangle, and then once again, draw the same rectangle, press finish edit mode once I'm done, and this will have created a floor plate. I go back on my 3D and check that it's here. Now on level 0, you might be thinking, okay, my image disappeared. So how do I draw the interiors? Down here again, you can check wireframe mode. So you're gonna be able to see through. Yeah, let's give it wireframe. And also, if you're worried about moving your image by mistake, what you could do, you could pin the image so it doesn't move anymore. So when you select it, up here next to the scale command, you have something that looks indeed like a pin. If you click it, now this image is going to be pinned. So I can't really, you see, I can't really move it anywhere. I can select it, but I can't modify it anymore. Nice. So next step is to draw another floor that will cap at level 1. So I want to do the same thing, but probably I don't want to position myself on level 0 this time, but on level 1. I'm going to go to level 1, and let me see. Can I see, do I see the walls underneath? You can't really tell if this is the drawing of the walls. We'll find out. So what I'm going to do now, I'm gonna use the floor command back again. Maybe this time let's choose a different type of floor, just because this is gonna be too thick. You're definitely gonna get much better floors than I do. Let's grab this one. It says on level 1, it says 0 offset, so which is good. Now, once again, it's a matter of how I'm gonna draw that. This time, instead of drawing a rectangle, I can pick the walls. There is this little icon here that tells me you could actually pick the walls and use that to create a floor. I'm gonna use that just to show you what it does. So I can click on first wall, second wall, third wall, and fourth wall. Press enter, and then it will tell me, would you like walls to go up to this floor to attach to its bottom? You can decide to say yes or no. I'll show you the difference, but actually I wanna, let's say don't attach for now. Sorry? You need to press the green check. Have you picked all the walls? Last line must be close the loops. Oh yeah. Cool. We like to join geometry and cut overlapping. Yes, I think so. And then 3D. Okay, here I am. So now I can start to explore the geometry I created. For instance, in 3D, down here, you should be finding a crop view. No, sorry, it's not the crop view that I'm looking for. Where's that? One second. Section box. This is what I'm looking for. So section box allows you to do like dynamic sections of your geometry. So if you look at it, you should be having something like that, right? Now, if you don't see the sections, it's probably because I'm using a fine level of detail. If I had to change this to basic level of detail, I wouldn't be seeing the layers, right? So it should be all here, hopefully. The next step is then to go back to level 0 and start to get in some openings, right? The main door and the windows. And once again, as I showed you on the example we looked at the very beginning, these are all coming from families that are preloaded in the software. Indeed, you see in here, the next to all, you do have door and windows. I'm gonna click on door, and in here, once again, you will have more than I do have. I'm gonna pick this one, which basically is giving me the basic information, which are the width and the height of the door. And I'm gonna see if these actually pretty much match the opening I do have in here. It does. You see that as I get closer to an existing wall, it starts to show the preview. If I move somewhere else in the emptiness, it doesn't show. Why? Because I can't create a door in the emptiness, right? So that's why I'm saying what I mean when I say that whatever you do in Revit has a meaning, is a geometry, is an entity that carries certain information. So so far you drew walls, not just geometries. So you get close to where you want the door to be, and then you simply click. Going back to the 3D, now I do have a door in here. And we're gonna do the same with, exactly the same with windows, okay? So go to Windows. Let's start with a standard measure. Let's check the second one maybe. And you see that I'm basically hovering on top of the wall where the window is supposed to sit. And depending on how close or far I'm from the exteriors, right? The window will basically pick up what's going to be the direction of the glazed portion, right? It's going to be more towards the interiors or more towards the exteriors. So I'm going to keep it more towards the interiors because it seems to be the system adopted by the architect. And so I'm just going to click in here, pretty much align it where it has to be, and so on. Just going to be the same exercise, repeat it over and over. Obviously, this will be a different size window, so we're going to look at it in a bit. But for now, oops. Just want to focus on those windows. And if I go back and look at the 3D, I see that now I have these windows. Cool. And once again, you can create interesting sections that cut through. Yep.
You're using a FNZ wall each visualization. So basically you're showing the initial wall and the initial wall works reversely. So like pointing downwards and that's why it's the bottom portion, which is the top in this case, as you mentioned. So you should just use the regular beat and but you just set it to the straight, the other second beat like this, and then wait meters high. Yeah, you can do line, I would do personally. Yeah, I go back to level 0. Just if you keep these two frames, I just position those we definitely have to do we have a
Okay, we're gonna do the same thing for these back windows in here, the smaller ones. So once again, I'm going to check window, and this time, let's see if we have some that are small enough. This is definitely not small enough. So what do we do in this case? If you don't find the right family, it's either you download it, maybe you found the supplier, right, for the right type of window, and more suppliers are providing with the BIM model of it, so that you can use it in your project. If you can't find it, you can basically use one of the preloaded families and modify it so that it will match your requirements. In this case, I'm going to use this window as a base, but I'm going to create a duplicate because I definitely don't want to overwrite the existing one. So otherwise I won't be able to use it back again and the information won't match. But if I click on it and say, in here and say edit type, I can do duplicate. And in here, let's say this is gonna be 60 by 60 centimeters, like a square windows of 60 by 60. So it's gonna be 600 by 600 millimeters. I can delete the number 2 and say okay. And down here, I have all the information, right? So I have height and width, which I can change. So instead of being 910, I can change this to 600, and I can change this one to 600 too, and say, okay. So now I have my new window typology. You see that a new one got created. It's the one that I just created, 600 by 600. And I can start and drop it, oops. And use it on my project. Go back to the 3D. This is how they look like. So the cool thing, if we go back and check the sections, is that everything is kind of like automatically updating in all the drawings, right? So now, once again, I can set these to wireframe. Oops. And I'll see through, but I can see that I mean, these are all new informations that I'm plugging in. So next will be again on level 0. We've been adding the door, we've been adding the windows, we're just missing the main window in here. It might be that we need again to create a customized family. Let's check what we have. So we go back to window, and this time I'm gonna search for the biggest one. It's probably this one. Let's check this one. This one is pretty good actually. So I'm simply gonna click and position it. It's just the biggest one that I had. Let's go back to the 3D and check it. Now you see I'm sectioning through. Obviously, I'm missing all the interiors. So that's the next thing that I want to do. I want to start drawing interiors. So I go back to level 0. And I can simply start to trace and be as precise as I want. I can simply start to trace my drawing, okay? I don't know what's happening with this window, okay. So, again, walls, but this time maybe using a different type of wall. I'm gonna do a quick test. Yeah, this could be a good one. So basic wall. Again, every time you pick a wall, make sure you check the height. So instead of being unconnected, we want this to reach level 1. And then again, if you can use center line this time. And simply start to trace where you have the walls. The walls will, even if it's different typologies, different walls, they will start to connect between each other. Winston. Okay. So, Yeah, just do this. What you can also do, you can select big elements and copy them. So for instance, like I can see that this wall is going to be pretty much the same, but replicated in here and there. I'm just going to do copy, grab the base point from where I want to copy to, and then maybe somewhere in here. Again, can be set to multiple. Okay. Oops. I can snap to reference to where the position of the wall has to be. And I have thinner ones, which I don't really have, so I will need once again to create a customized family for those. So I'm gonna go again to wall. This time I'm gonna check wall rectangular, 300, concrete, whatever. I'm gonna do edit type and do a duplicate, and I'm gonna call it 100. So this will be 10 centimeters. Say okay. And I'm gonna edit the structure. So the cool thing in Revit is you can also dig into the structure, change the size and the thickness of different layers, for instance, the insulation versus the finishings and so on. They all carry properties. So this is great for both checking the cost of materials, changing eventually like the type of materials, for instance, the type of insulation you want to use, but also for environmental analysis, right? Because there are then environmental tools inside Revit that will pick up on the families that you use that carries different properties. Guys on that side of the room, please be quiet, okay? We are almost done. So I'm gonna edit the structure. You see that here pretty much, here I don't really have layers. It's just like mainly concrete. It's just simple concrete wall. I could change that, but I'm not that interested in that now. This is just like basic intro to Revit. So I'm gonna simply click in here and change this from 300 to 100 and say okay. And I say okay. And now I have a way thinner wall, as you can see. It's been added to the list I already have. And this is going to be great for me to kind of like trace these thinner ones, right? I'm going to do, again, make sure it reaches level 1. And I'm going to do finish face exteriors. Right, so since these walls are creating enclosed rooms that can't be reached, I need again to use some doors. I'm not gonna do everything exactly how it looks at the moment, but just kind of like tracing more or less the main interiors, right? So I'm just gonna grab some doors, maybe like the smaller ones this time, and I'm simply gonna draw them here. If you want to change the door direction, you simply press spacebar on the keyboard. And I'll do the same in here. And let's say I'm happy with these interiors for now. Maybe the only thing that I can add is this main wall where the stairs is gonna be. So for this one, I'm gonna pick back the larger one. Not center line, but again, face exterior. Even if it's not exactly the same thickness, it doesn't matter now. I'm gonna go back to 3D and check what I have. So yeah, much better, right? There is more definition, definitely more definition. We got windows, we got doors. At least this is not just like an empty box. Now that you move up, you will notice this. These walls, they go all the way through the upper floor. So what we need to do, we need to attach their top and constraining it to the level 1 floor. How do we do that? We can select just those walls, and there is a shortcut for that. So you can select everything in the scene, right? And then you can go up here where it says filter and say check none, and then only check walls and say, okay, this is a selection filter. And then from this, you want to take out from the selection the external walls. So I'm just with shift, I'm just going to deselect the external walls. Now I should be having all the internal walls selected. With this, I can do attach top base, click on it, yeah, and then selecting the floor I want them to attach to the top, and now you don't see them coming through anymore. There is not that overlapping anymore, which doesn't exist in reality, right? They will just stop as they touch the floor. So if I go back and check the section, as you can see, they stop and they're actually connected, right? Yes? What? You draw them on level 1. So basically what you would need to do, you either draw them on level 1 or you draw them unconnected if they are unconnected. So when you, I'll show you. So basically, when you draw the walls, you have to state their height. And it's easy to forget at the beginning when you start modeling Revit. And you wouldn't think about it because you're drawing in 2D. But actually, you're drawing in 3D, right? So I'll go back to the 3D. And then you can, like these walls, they go all the way up, right? So it's okay. This one's, no, you can tell it goes all the way to level 0 and it just, but it's not connected, the height is not connected. I can tell, it says it here. It's very easy to spot things in Revit, by the way, because it tells you everything, right? And pretty much everything is reversible. So you can go and check all of these and say, instead of having the top constraint to be unconnected, the top constraint will be level 1. Say apply, and it's fixed. The only thing is, now with these guys, also with these ones, as we'll do later, we're going to select all of them, right? To select more, control. Yeah, with control you have to select. All of these, you want to do attach top base, and click this one, and it will stop. And it will be constrained to that, right? So once again, if I had now to say, coming to you in a second. So if I had now to say, oh, wait a second, I got it completely wrong. Like level 1 is not at 3 meters, 0.2, whatever. It's at 3 meters, 0.5, right? What do? I need to change again the size of all the all the walls, the exterior ones, the interior ones. I need to change where the top floor is located. Not really. If I worked in a proper way, I can change now this to say like 500, and everything will automatically adapt, right? That's the beauty of it. Yeah? Okay, let's try, it's almost time, we only have 10 minutes left. So I quickly want to show you maybe like how to quickly draw like curtain walls, and then how to bring this into some board and like document your drawings, your model. So I'll do it quickly. So next step will be now like going to level 1 and start to build on level 1. The only problem with level 1 now is can't really see the image. So once again, I can decide to go wireframe for a moment. I'm not gonna save this. So now I'm able to see it. I know that this rectangle represents the basically the glass box that I'm having on the top of this villa. So I'm gonna go and use wall, but this time down here I should be having curtain wall empty. This is what I'm gonna use. And I wanna make sure that the base constraint is level 1, not level 0 anymore, because this is gonna be above level 0, right? And that the height is constrained to roof level, or level 2 if you call it level 2. I'm gonna grab this rectangle and I'm simply gonna trace. Sorry, I didn't grab the rectangle. And I'm simply going to trace the drawing. Something like that. Press enter. And then going back to the 3D, this is what it looks like, right? What is this missing as part of the most important information that I will have to showcase is all the mullions, right? Basically the curtain grid. So we need to add a curtain grid to it. How do we do that? Ideally, we either move to some sort of like parallel view. We can do it in here. And up here you have curtain grid. So we can check curtain grid. And just by hovering on top, you can start placing the grid, right? You can try to be precise, like I'm doing every 1 meter point too. Well, not super precise, as you can see, but then there is a way to be more precise, which is by using annotations. And I want to show you that annotations in Revit are more of a live things. Is there anyone here who already used annotations, say in AutoCAD, for instance? You've been using annotations in AutoCAD, right? In Revit, when you basically assign annotation to distances, those things become live and they become attached to annotation, same way as the levels did previously, right? So if I change numbers on annotation, also the positions of geometries will change. I'll show you exactly what I mean. So if you go to annotate, can't do annotation. Why? Because I'm not technically on a parallel view. So probably have to go to one of these elevations. Let's check. Maybe not east, not north, south. Right? I want to be on south, and now I can do linear annotation. Linear annotation. I'm gonna pick. Is it picking? Maybe I should be using align. Yeah, align is better. So I'm gonna pick all these lines. They'll be highlighted in blue. Yeah, let me see. I don't think I picked the right one at the beginning. So it should be this one. And then basically I'm gonna pick all the lines that I've been drawing. Right? Press. What happened? Sorry. Let me do it again. Sorry, my bad. So in Revit, basically, once you're done, you need to click, kind of click in the emptiness, right, for it to work. So you see that we have different measures between these curtain wall subdivisions. Up here we have this that is like, it's just basically like a little mark that says equal, right? If we click on it, that will basically automatically subdivide all these subdivisions equally. So now we know that they're all at the same distance. We don't need to see this anymore, so we can delete it. and we can say unconstrained, because as I said before, keep in mind, like everything is connected in Revit. So if we delete it, we will say unconstrained. So that doesn't mean we're going to delete the panels. So this is the perfect size for the panels if we want to divide this dimension up to this number of panels. And with this thing done, I can now go back to 3D because it's going to be more evident in there. And I can start to assign mullions to these divisions. Okay, so this is a bit more clear. So I'm going to go back to architecture. And this time I'm going to pick mullions in here. When I pick mullions, once again, I'm bringing up another typologies, which at the moment is like rectangular mullion, 50 millimeters by 150. Fine, or we can use the 30 millimeter square, maybe. It's a bit thinner. And you simply click on the grid that I created, and this will automatically assign a mullion. Okay? After doing this, instead of doing it all back again, what you could do, I could delete this one, and I can go to level 1. Actually, sorry. Before I go to 3, select all of this, and then unselect only the shortest sides. And with this selected, I can go back to level 1, and I can mirror it. So I'm going to use mirror draw axis. I'm going to grab the middle point in here and draw the axis, and it will be mirror on the other side. Same thing you can do on the short side. And then the next step will be basically creating a roof, let's say, for this portion of the building. So I'm going to go to roof level. Roof level, I don't have it, so I have to go roof level in here. Let's get wireframe in place. Might be sometimes that I don't see underneath. And if that happens, it means the view range of the level is messed up, right? So we need to go and check the view range, which is when we are in the properties of the view, specific view we're looking at. And we scroll down. We have something called view range, and we can edit it from here. So I can click on edit. This will bring up this window. It says that the bottom is associated to roof level. I want this to be to the level below, so level 1. And the view depth, again, I want this to be to the level below level 1. Let's say apply, and let's see if we can see something. I think so. Say okay. Yeah, now I can definitely see what's happening underneath. So basically it was in the properties of the view. Like I'm looking at this floor, right? And I can't see what's underneath because my view range just stops in here. So what I did, I forced it. I said, no, let's just like bring it down, right? So I can see what's happening underneath, and I can pick up on what's happening underneath to create my roof. So let's create this roof. So I'm gonna pick roof. And once again, we have the option to define a slope. We don't really want to define a slope. We don't want to have like a pitch roof. Definitely not on that villa that will ruin the entire thing. We want to have a flat roof. So I'm going to uncheck this. And then once again, we have different options for the roof. I'm going to pick, I guess, the first one. And I'm going to do pick walls. Then I can pick basically the glazed portions and say enter. And I'm going to go back to the 3D. And this not so beautiful roof has been made. Obviously, I can edit the footprint, right? I can make this bigger if I wish. Again, like I suggest everyone to go and do it on a plan view, right? Like if you want something like that, you can offset it. Now I'm rushing because we have to close it, but it can be something like this. The 3D, right? It can be thinner if I change the typology, of course. At the moment, it's just like this thick typology. But as I said before, what you would do, you would just edit the type, create a thinner one. Just to close this, let's say, yeah, let me close it, then I'll come back to it. I'll open the Q&A. So whatever we've been doing today, we want to document it. We want to print it out as a PDF, right? How do we do that? We have another category down here called Sheets, and we have a preloaded one, which is this A1, right? How do you populate your boards with drawings generated from your model? So all the drawings generated from your models are pretty much in here, right? You have floor plans, ceiling plans, which you're not really going to use for now, elevations, sections, and so on. So all you need to do is just like basically grabbing the one that you want to be represented in the board and dragging it in. Then I want to change this to be no title, so it doesn't carry like that annoying bar underneath. This is your view. At the moment, if I click in the emptiness, I'm not activating this view. So this is just like a, I don't know, like a stamp, right, on top. But you could actually potentially activate it. So if you double click on it, now you are inside the view. And this is cool. Why? Because you can go back and change, for instance, the scale. Say, oh, wait, this is an A1. This is too big. It is not going to fit in there with the other drawings. I want this to be 1 to 200. And so you pick 1 to 200. Double click in the emptiness. This, once again, is like a sticker. You might have things in here that you don't want to see. So you can do double click, activate the view again. And maybe, I don't know, I don't want to see these elevation marks really. Right? Don't really add any information. So I can click one of them and say right click and do hide in view. And instead of doing elements, I'm going to do category. So it's going to automatically pick the category and it's going to hidden it. So that's going to be hidden. In the view. In the view. That's why I would suggest, like, good question, because then that's why I would suggest you guys to have specific views, like duplicated. You can duplicate views, right? And maybe like give them, like, change the naming and say, this is going to be, I don't know, this is kind of like ground floor, board A, second floor, board B, depending how you organize your boards, right? And you can have a mixture of drawings in there. And you can change the visualization. This is going to be for a more kind of advanced session, because today we're running out of time. But you can definitely change the visibility. For instance, in here, what I could do, if I activate this, oops, sorry. If I activate this, I could change this to be shaded, for instance, or realistic, or hidden line, whatever. Activate the shadows, right? And completely change the way this is represented. And then I could drag in the level 1 as well, and it will be the same thing. Not sure why it's not dragging it in. Okay, I need to ask the view first. And then here's level 1. But I could also drag in 3D views and sections. So as I said before, maybe I want to have a section in here. So I'm going to grab section A, placing in there, doing no title, and then just going to activate it so I can crop this view a little bit. It's easier. So I got a section, and maybe I create a duplicate of my 3D. So I just get a 3D that I crop. So I make like a crop action, let's say, and I bring it in. So right click, duplicate view, duplicate, right? So I have my duplicate, and I'm gonna call it, let's say, rename 3D board. And maybe what I do in here, I just cut through just to show something, right? I don't know, like something like that. You pick the view you want to show. You change the visualization method to say, I don't know, like hidden line, whatever. Maybe this is going to be 1 to 200. And then now I go back to my board, and I bring 3D board in. And here you go. And if you don't want to see, once again, like you don't want to see levels, you don't want to see the crop box, right? You now know what to do. So, click into this, select all that you don't want to see it, and do right click, hide in view, elements or category, up to you. And maybe you change your mind and say like these, I want this to be 1 to 100 because it's too small. And here you go. And now, once you're done, let's say you also do a couple of renders, couple of, I don't know, like, maybe like an exploded axle, whatever. You simply go to File and you can do print, you can do export, and export as PDF. And that will generate a PDF of your board. I'm going to do selected views or sheets, and I'm going to pick it, which is going to be sheet A100, select. Okay. I'm probably going to try and do it on the desktop. I'm going to use the sheet size. It's going to be an A1, fit to page, and vector or raster. Not have time to dig into that now. You can change the quality. I'm going to set it to medium, so it's going to be faster. In theory, that should work. And here you have your PDF, like beautiful. It's not that beautiful, right? But in theory, when you populate your projects with more information, all of that will show up, right? So, sorry I had to rush a bit, but we're running out of time. This is where we got with this session. As I said, there is a lot of resources online, and Revit really is one of those software that will require you ages to get to a certain level, but then it will open up so many opportunities as well. Do you have any question before we close it up?
Yes. I'm just going to ask one, like on the roof level which you created the roof, instead of that, you can even use flow slabs as well.
Instead of, sorry?
Like instead of making a roof, you can use flow slabs as well. Does it make a difference?
Yes, in terms of, it will make a difference because it's going to be different layers defining it. It's going to be then like structurally different. So that's the thing. It's not just a geometry. Like geometrically, it might look the same. It's just about the thickness. But then what's inside and the properties will be different. The structural aspect of it will be different. So that's why I use it for the first one, because technically there will be like a terrace, but then I use the roof for the top level. Yeah.
And you would save it as a project.
Yeah, forgot to say, when you're saving it, save it as a project. Okay, because you'll get a few options. You want to make sure you save it as a project, not as a template. Cool, thank you.